KFI, Mr. Mo Kelly here. It's Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app. Got some show notes to let you know. Next Friday, not tomorrow, but a week from today, we will have our very special co-host. You may remember back during Pastathon, you had the opportunity to co-host an episode of Later with Mo Kelly on a Friday. Maybe even run the Name That Movie Cult Classic game. Choose the movies. Have all sorts of fun. Talk about anything that you want to talk about. Whatever's going on in the world. Entertainment, politics, what have you. Well, our co-host for next Friday week, Paul Berry, will be joining us in studio next Friday. And I can't tell you what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm going to be riding shotgun on my own show. All 3 hours. Matter of fact, we'll talk to him tomorrow off air, go over some show prep notes, getting him ready to become a full bona fide KFI radio professional. So that's going to be Friday week. And we're still ironing out some other details. I'm now switching gears. We hope to have Grammy-nominated musician Corey Henry in studio. If you know anything about this piano and keyboard prodigy, you're in for a treat. He should be joining us in studio on Tuesday. I say that fingers crossed, tentatively speaking, because I feel like I jinx myself whenever I talk about any type of interview in advance. But you would be in for a treat. Can't wait for that. And if you're wondering, Mo, why are you so energetic? Why are you in such a good mood? Because we finally have some rain coming. Hopefully not too much for my folks in Altadena, but we do have some rain, which hopefully will alleviate a lot of these fires. All right, Mark Rana, let us have it. Tell us, give us the good news.
Well, you really hope it's not a monkey's paw situation, if you're familiar with that story at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so the way it's looking right now, we were due for some rain Friday. That has been amended. These things change on the fly. Now, Saturday, we got a 30% chance of rain during the day, and then it's looking like more of a sure thing at night. Rain Sunday and possibly Monday as well. So 3 days of rain possible in our future. I hope it's just the right amount, like the Three Bears story.
Just the right amount.
Not too much, not too little. Just
right.
Just enough to spit those fires the rest of the way out and not cause any mudslides.
Hopefully, we're due for some good news, just a little bit of good news.
You think?
It doesn't have to be perfect news. Doesn't have to be great news. I'm just asking for good news. I think we've earned it. I think people of Southern California deserve it. We need a respite from all the bad news, and that's part of the reason why tonight we're going to lean into some fun tonight. I think we've all had enough news where we can also weave in some fun. Now, don't get us wrong. We're still going to follow the fires. We're going to still make sure that you are informed with what's going on if there should be a new fire, which should come about, which is a distinct possibility because that's Southern California these days. But we're going to make sure that you have this information when it's necessary. You're not going to miss anything by listening to KFI. Mark Ronner is going to be on it. We have other individuals in our intrepid news staff, Brian Lowe, who's going to be on it. So we will have all sorts of information for you as it arises, and we'll give it to you as it makes sense. So don't think that we're diminishing the impact or the importance of the fires. We're just also going to have a little bit of fun tonight because I don't know about you, but it's time to laugh a little, just a bit.
I remember fun.
I do. It seems so distant, doesn't it?
Yes.
It seems like it was so long ago. It kind of was because we were doing those 5-hour shifts, so it just seemed longer ago than usual.
Well, it's been about 2 weeks as of yesterday, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, about 2 weeks. There is legitimate news that we will be covering tonight. We'll tell you about how residents have been very concerned over the toxic ash and the chemicals lingering in the air all over Southern California. That impacts everyone, whether you were in an evacuated zone or not. And there is a new recall effort. I mean, it's almost like the sun coming up, which is targeting Governor Gavin Newsom, and it's citing California's rising costs and policies. I'll tell you about that. And I know that a lot of folks do not like Governor Gavin Newsom. He is not very popular in certain segments, but he wins overwhelmingly here in California. And this probably will be the 6th attempt at getting him recalled.
Oh, no, it's more than that. I think they've had 8 so far.
Okay. All right. Then I underestimated.
I can check this.
Yeah, let's get that, because that's going to be part of my remarks. I mean, if the first 7 times weren't successful and you were never close.
According to our own KFI records, Newsom has survived 8 previous recall attempts.
Okay, so this is number 9. So we both undershot it. This will be number 9. Well, who knows? Maybe, look, I remember when I was a very young, strapping gentleman, and I said, look, maybe the 9th time is the charm when I ask her out. Maybe the 9th time she'll view me differently, and she'll say yes to me. Who knows? Hope springs eternal. But that'll come up a little bit later. We'll talk about Governor Gavin Newsom and the latest effort to recall him. So much to cover tonight. We're going to have a little bit of fun. Of course, we're going to have a lot of news because that's what's most important. But as long as we're here together, it's going to be enjoyable. It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
I want you to walk back in time with me to the mid-1970s. Los Angeles, specifically, or just Southern California more generally. I remember as a kid, and it didn't matter if it were winter or summer, felt it definitely much more in summer, but I remembered it year round. I remember going to school, and we'd have these like smog alert days where we couldn't go out on the playground for recess. I'm serious, Stefan. It was a real thing. Have these smog alert days. Kids couldn't go outside and play, not at school at least. Or during the summer, you go outside and play. And if you were old enough to be able to like get on, or if your parents would take you somewhere like down the 110 freeway, you could see downtown, there was this brown haze just hanging over the city. We called that normal everyday life. The air quality was horrible here in Southern California. And I remember my friends who had asthma. Not frequently, but there were times they would have these bad asthma attacks. They'd be taken to the hospital. Or if you were playing as a kid outside all day, your chest would start hurting from just breathing in the bad air quality. No exaggeration.
You're not exaggerating. During the times that I lived here briefly as a child, I would have gasping attacks where all I could do was lie on the couch and just...
Yeah.
And, of course, my mom didn't take me to a doctor or anything. They just passed, but it was no joke.
But we took that as being normal, regular. That was acceptable back in the day. And if you're not old enough to remember that, you may not understand how egregious it was. We just didn't know, or you could say government was taking a blind eye. But now, many decades later, and you have an event just like the fires. And for me, it takes me back to that. Because you get to see, and it's much more concentrated, of course. You have the ash on your car or on your house. You can see it falling in the air. It's a little bit better now until we have another major fire, and it's almost like you start all the way over. And it goes out for tens and dozens of miles. So it's not like you have to be right next to an evacuation zone or a fire zone for you to feel the ill effects of this air. And I'm one of the many residents who's very concerned about this toxic ash, the chemicals lingering in the air. And it's something that we may not actively be thinking about, but it is actively impacting us directly every single day. Now, this is the EPA, quote, during a wildfire or other combustion-related activities, concentrations of particles can substantially increase in the air to the point that particle pollution is visible to the naked eye. Yes, we see this, but it goes on. Again, this is EPA. This level of smoke, of pollution that's in the air, the ash, the chemicals can irritate our lungs and upper airways. Yes. Now, the question is, how long will we be dealing with this type of air pollution? And it's not something you can hide from. Twala Sharp was telling you about, hey, he's going to wear his N95 mask. I have not gotten to the point of wearing the N95 mask. Maybe I should, honestly. Maybe I should. But it's something that we should be very cognizant of as far as the, my word, horrible air quality. And it's something we took for granted in Southern California many, many years ago. We're older now. We're smarter now, hopefully. We're more knowledgeable now and informed. We should do better now, if only to protect ourselves, protect our children. And I know you may be that person who say, I'm not ever going to wear a mask. Okay, God bless you. That's your choice. But also know, going back to the 1970s, there was a cost to that. Now, I can't tell you in a scientific sense how many people had lung issues growing up directly related to smog. I can't tell you who possibly got lung cancer or who had respiratory illnesses and diseases later on in life. I can tell you that it was absolutely unhealthy, especially over a long period of exposure. And we had to do better for the sake of everyone. The air quality. Just talk to someone who's over the age of maybe 45. Like, I don't think, Stephanie, do you remember anything about the smog days? Did you have that growing up?
Not that I really remember, no.
Yeah. Mark, did you have anything like that? And you said when you visited, but I didn't know what the air quality was like up in Washington.
Well, we had the explosion of Mount St. Helens I was also...
Was that 82?
I was in that territory. I forget the exact year. So I lived here briefly when I was a kid, and that's when I used to have the gasping attacks. I lived in L.A. But then, out of here and up to Washington with a volcano promptly. So I got good timing.
I remember we were studying that in class as it was happening because there was a lead up to the eruption of Mount St. Helens. And, in science class, we would study stuff like that. We didn't have any internet. All we had was broadcast television, very limited direct exposure to the news surrounding it. But it was something that we did study in class.
Well, let me tell you, it was like snow had fallen everywhere. There was ash everywhere for months and years after that. It got in and on everything, and you did not want to, say, go jogging in the ash.
And I don't want to be macabre, and I want to be very respectful of this. We all know what the ash looked like in 9/11. We all know the long-term impact of that ash. We know that people died many years later because of that ash. So it's something that we should be aware of and not dismiss just because it's sunny skies outside. It was visually a beautiful day. It was. But we do know that the air quality is still subpar. It's still less than what it was. And we have these relatively new fires just about every day. They may not all be the size of Pacific Palisades or Eaton Canyon, but obviously the Hughes fire was pretty sizable, comparatively speaking, and that has consistently and continuously made our air, I would say, on this side of dangerous. And we know that these toxic chemicals can linger in the air for not only days, but even weeks. Hear me now. Even weeks after a wildfire has been extinguished. After. And we haven't even extinguished all these wildfires. We're not even at day one after the fires have ended. So if today, as in January 23rd, we're day one, our air quality is going to be impacted for what we know of for weeks, well into February. Even if all the fires were extinguished today.
You always see news footage of some fitness freak out jogging in the middle of a catastrophic flood or whatever's going on. I think better safe than sorry is a good thing to keep in mind for what's going on right now.
Yeah, and I think we lull ourselves into a false sense of security. You say, well, and because we may not be able to perceive the toxicity of the air. It's like, I'm not having trouble breathing. That goes back to what I was talking about growing up as a kid. You're playing outside all day, and then at the end of the day, you realize that your breathing has impacted or your chest is hurting. You may not know it in the moment. The damage that we're doing to ourselves right now may not avail itself in the moment.
No, you don't need to book Louis Pasteur as a guest to understand that some things we can't see can really hurt us.
You went Louis Pasteur on me.
Yeah, I played the Pasteur card. I'm sorry.
Look, in the age of raw milk, too. Yes, I hear you.
That's a whole nother thing right there.
I am there with you. But
don't run outside while chugging raw milk.
I will say this, but it has been something that's been actively on my mind. I think about it as far as walking my dogs. We have air purifiers in the house.
Yeah, we do too. Yeah,
we're actively conscious of this, and we know that it's not just the fires. It's not just the fires that we can see on TV. It's not just the fires that have been put out. Thank you to all the first responders and firefighters who have done such a wonderful job protecting lives and also property. It's not that. It's all the things that we can't see, that we don't know, and that are going to linger at least until February, maybe March, depending on how much longer we're dealing with these mass fires.
Air filters rather make a big difference, and I'm glad you brought those up. You can get them on Amazon. It takes 5 minutes to do research. They're more affordable than you would think. I bought one at Costco for like $130. We use it all the time. Those are very helpful, not just for the fire smoke, but for COVID, and they're just good things to have on hand.
And it's interesting. I didn't realize how much of a difference they can make until my wife went wild and bought like 3 of them and put them all over the house. And you immediately notice the difference.
You do. And I'm constantly reading as well about the difference they make in schools and office buildings. They're good to have.
It's later with Mo Kelly. When we come back, we're going to talk about this most recent recall effort, which is targeting Governor Newsom. And I'm here to tell you, this is not a political statement, but I'm here to tell you, don't get your hopes up, because the first 9 times didn't yield the result that you might have wanted. The 10th time is not, I'm here to tell you, is not going to yield any different result. We'll tell you why when we come back.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
There's a new recall effort, of course, against Governor Gavin Newsom. I know you can't stand the guy. In fact, full disclosure, I don't like him either. I've never voted for him. Never have, never supported him. There's some things that I know that I can't say on the air or shouldn't say on the air. But I will say this. This recall effort, regardless of how much you may personally agree with it or how politically agreeable it may be for you, is not going to go anywhere. I mean, you may get the requisite signatures and get it on the ballot. There may have a special recall election like they've had in previous years, but it's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to lead to him being ousted. It's not going to lead to someone like Larry Elder, like last time, becoming governor. I'm just telling you, let's skip to the end. I'm telling you how the story ends. Quote, under the reign of Governor Newsom, living in California has become impossible for average people through years of poor policies which have increased the cost of living, increased crime, increased drug use and homelessness, increased the cost of burden on small businesses and communities, while decreasing our professional standards, education standards, the disappearance of billions of taxpayers' dollars to failed pet programs and our public services. That comes from Randy Economy, the group's founder, who is behind this effort. I know Randy very well. We have done on-air radio work together. I would call him a friend, and we can reach out to each other anytime. I've had him on, not this show, I've had him on the Mo Kelly show a number of times. And what I'm saying right now is what I've said to him personally, professionally, politically, and not to be too cynical, even though I can be very cynical, but I know why these recall efforts happen, and a lot of times they aren't to be successful, but to possibly damage a politician. People don't necessarily know that it's the umpteenth time that there was a recall effort. Usually in the minds of voters, they're not paying that close attention, so they just hear, oh, Governor Gavin Newsom is being recalled, or there's a recall effort against him. Why now? Why anytime? It's about presenting him in a way which makes him less attractive on a national level now, because let's be honest, we know that he is probably the Democratic front runner for president in 2028. Probably is. There's probably no one with more name recognition on a national level who has not already run for president or who does not have more baggage. It's Gavin Newsom's to lose, like him or loathe him. If you're not a Democrat, of course you're not voting for him. I'm just saying within Democratic circles, he's probably the front runner. And in the way that you want to make sure that your preferred candidate has the best chance to win in 2028, whoever it is, you damn sure want to make sure that you try to damage as much as possible the presumptive front runner of the party that you don't like. This is more of that. If you are, and I told you about this with Steve Garvey, and I received a lot of hate mail from you, and I was just trying to tell you the truth and warn you up front. If you believe that Gavin Newsom has any real chance of being recalled, you don't understand California politics. He's won his last two gubernatorial races by some 25 points. That's almost unheard of, and including the recall effort against him, which is just 50% plus one. You're not going to recall him. And not only that, he's going to finish out his term, I believe, in 2026, which is like next year. So even if you get the requisite signatures to get this on the ballot for a special election, just like it happened back in 2022, you're right at the end of his term. You're not gaining anything. You're just actually costing the taxpayers of California, who have to pay for a special election, which costs millions of dollars, and it's not going to yield any different result. In fact, I should reach out to Randy this week and see if he can come on next week, because what I'm saying to you, I will say exactly to him. I personally believe it's a fool's errand. I know, you hate him. You hate him. You can't stand him. You just can't wait to get rid of him. But what did the first 7-8 times tell you? What did that get you? If anything, he's more popular in Democratic circles now. I'm not saying he should be. I'm saying that he is. He's more popular within Democratic circles now, as evidenced by the fact that he's likely the presumptive frontrunner for the nomination in 2028, running for president. He's more popular now than he was 4 years ago. And 4 years ago, I don't know, that's what, 6 recalls ago? So what does that tell you? It's almost like it's the Incredible Hulk. The more you do this, the stronger he gets. And I wonder the political thinking and reasoning behind this, because if we can agree that it's probably not going to be successful, in fact, I would say it's definitely not going to be successful, then what do you stand to gain? If it's not going to help you, the Republican voter here in California, if it's not going to change who is going to be governor here in California, and it's probably going to propel him in a national sense. And if I were to make a Trump comparison, think about all the times that the Democrats went after Trump. Did that help Trump or hurt Trump? Well, if we look at recent history, you could make the argument that it helped Trump. All the negativity and all the efforts to get him impeached or whatever, it helped him big picture as far as his Republican base. Now, with Governor Gavin Newsom, if you think that the 9th or the 10th recall effort is going to be the magic bullet, is the one that's going to make the difference and somehow derail his political aspirations of running for president, then I think you're deluding yourself. I think you're honestly deceiving yourself. This, at best, will get enough signatures and it'll get on the ballot and it will fail again for the 9th, 10th, or 11th time.
Also, do you know who pays for those recall elections?
Yes, I do. Go ahead.
The taxpayers.
No, that's what I said. I said we, the taxpayers, are going to have to pay the millions of dollars for the special election. Yes.
Oh, it's not just a couple million. It could be like up to $250 million.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, because we're very concerned about, not wasting tax dollars and making sure the state is, on budget.
Something
sure, why not?
To keep in mind if you're concerned about fiscal responsibility and that's one of your complaints.
You mean if you're sincerely concerned?
Sure, whatever you say.
It's later with Mo Kelly. KFI AM 640. Yes, Randy Economy. I know you're probably listening. Reach out to me. We'll have you on next week and have this conversation on air. And I'll say the exact same thing all over again.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And the reason why I wanted to talk about that Gavin Newsom recall effort last segment, I wanted that to set up what I wanted to talk about relative to President Trump visiting Los Angeles, Southern California tomorrow, if everything is still on schedule. It's really important what happens tomorrow. Not only the optics, not only the interplay between Newsom and Bass and Trump, but their real lives who will be affected by what happens tomorrow. If it gets bogged down in just politics and aid is dangled over the head of Los Angeles and California to gain political points, then that means people will have to suffer longer, unnecessarily so. And I always root for people. I never root for politicians. I root for people. And my hope is tomorrow it'll be more people and less politics. Now, maybe that's Pollyanna-ish. Maybe I'm deluding myself. But my hope is that the president, governor, Mayor Bass, and the other associated mayors, I don't want people to think that it's only about Mayor Bass. There are a good 9 or 10 incorporated cities out there which are also part of this equation. My hope is that our government can be a little less dysfunctional for a couple of days, and you can have the federal response aligned with the state's response and also aligned with the local responses to these fires. I hope that we can see a cordial exchange between Governor Newsom and President Trump, usually with the customary handshake at on the airport, maybe on the airport tarmac, and maybe they'll have a nice press conference and they say all the nice things and they curse each other out behind the scenes or do whatever they need to do. I don't want anything publicly to get in the way of the relief effort. Maybe I'm asking too damn much, and maybe my cynicism should lead the way on this. Maybe I should take some of my own medicine and remind myself that that's not the way our politics work now. But if you are unfortunately rooting for some sort of fireworks or owning someone or a public embarrassment of someone, and I mean that either way, because if Governor Newsom were to try to embarrass President Trump, we know how he's going to respond and where that all is going to lead. That serves no one. That serves no one. That helps no one. I hope that we can get through tomorrow unscathed and not get bogged down in who posts what or who said what, who insulted whom, and just did the business at hand. Because I know too many people who lost their houses. Too many. Personally. And the last thing I am going to care about is whether Donald Trump stuck it to California. The last thing that I'm going to care about is whether Gavin Newsom got the better of Donald Trump. The last thing I'm going to worry about is Mayor Bass going to be safe and she's going to survive this and not have to deal with the scrutiny and the criticism. I don't care about any of that. Maybe I'm in the minority. Well, it wouldn't be the first time. But maybe I would be in the minority in the sense of looking for things that other people aren't looking for. Because I see time and time again, and I see it on social media, I see it on cable news, that people are either rooting against California or rooting against certain politicians to somehow further espouse their political worldview, when honestly, I'm just worried about people who've lost their houses, who've lost everything, who need help. And most of the time, even though we talk about we got to shrink the government, the government's too big, it's too bloated. This is the time you actually need the government. The whole idea of federalism is about moments right now. States have limited access to certain funds. When you talk about a natural disaster or even a man-made disaster, it usually is beyond not only the control of the state, but it's beyond the capacity of the state. And if we left each and every state to handle and fend for themselves during natural disasters, this country would fall apart. Imagine if we left Alabama last year to its own devices when those tornadoes tore through the state. Or if Joe Biden said, well, you know what? I'm not so sure I am going to give or release federal aid to Alabama because I'm not so sure that their politics are in alignment with mine. Imagine that for a moment. Or if Joe Biden were to say, you know what? I'm not so sure I'm going to help out Florida because it's not in my political interest. I don't like Governor Ron DeSantis, and he may be a threat to me in the primaries, or he may not be helpful to me later on down the road. Imagine that for a moment. Me, I wasn't thinking about that. I'm thinking about whether Florida's going to get the help that it needs. Or the other 6 states also impacted by Hurricane Helene and Milton. 6 states, I think, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, more than 200 people died between those 2 hurricanes and thousands of houses destroyed. I just think about the lives who were upended because of those hurricanes. I wasn't thinking about politics. I was worried about people.
I'm going to take your word for that. I don't have that information handy, but
I know
you are right that it's traditionally we all come together in times of emergency and we don't use them as leverage politically.
Right? I mean, is that such a lofty goal here? Is that too much to ask? Is that too much to hope for?
Also, think real carefully if you're talking about cutting off California from federal aid, because California is a net contributor nationally. We contribute far, far more in federal dollars than we take, unlike states like Louisiana.
Yeah, I think I can't remember the exact number, so I'm not going to say it. But yes,
I think it's like $82 billion.
Okay,
just off the top of my head,
we are paying far more taxes than we're getting back in return.
Yeah,
far more. California has a disproportionate and outsized impact and level of importance in the economic fortunes of this country. Period. Point blank. Full stop.
Yeah, so if you want to inflict rugged individualism on all the states, I think a lot would get hit a lot harder than California.
Yeah, that's when your politics get in the way of good common sense. And you like I always tell people, you may think you want that. You may think it would be cool if President Trump were to withhold funds or dangle funds over the state of California. You may think you want that. You don't. You don't. I'm trying to give you the easy path here. Get the easy ones right. And the easy one is the federal government helps out the states. That's what federalism is. That's why you have FEMA. That's why you have this federal declaration of a disaster. That's how people are going to be made whole the quickest. I hope we don't mess up tomorrow. And I say we, because there are a lot of competing interests. I'm only rooting for people, not politicians, not political party. Because I don't know about you, I know of at least 10 people who've lost everything. I don't give 2G dams about who might be winning politically. KFI AM 640, we're live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
If you didn't like that opinion, keep listening. We've got a few more.
KFI.
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.